We got a lot to talk about today, fellas. For those of you not in the know, I am a very, very, very big fan of Virtua Fighter. I have loved this franchise ever since I really played it, back when Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown dropped. Now, you know, I've gone back and I've played a lot of the older games, but, you know, I grew up on Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. It came out just as I was ending high school, getting ready to go to college. It was a lot of fun. You know, no real fighting game really kind of played like it before. And I thought it was a very unique fighting game. I didn't think much of it at the time. A couple years passed. I get into competitive fighting games a little bit more seriously. And I go back and I revisit Virtua Fighter. And knowing what I know now about fighting games, from competing in them for a few years, there's so much more to enjoy. Virtua Fighter is one of those games that really rewards you for spending time with the game and developing your strategies within that game in a way that I find few other games don't really do in the same way. And that's all well and good, but unfortunately, there's not a big player base for Virtua Fighter right now. And a lot of that's because the game has been in this sort of weird, we'll call it dead for lack of a better use of language, because, you know, dead fighting game. But it has been in this weird place where the developers, Sega, were kind of done with Virtua Fighter. They were kind of done. They weren't really developing anything much more for it. You know, they would occasionally like put Virtua Fighter characters in other games. A notable example is Dead or Alive 5. They would put Akira into Dengeki Bunko. And they would also put them into, you know, Sega mobile games, which, you know, that's the final nail in the coffin, really. Is once you're in a phone game, you're kind of done for it. Rest in peace, Puzzle Fighter. But that really was just kind of the way things were ever since Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown dropped in 2012. Everybody was really excited in the coming years for a sequel, and we never got it. However, that being said, we did get something late in September of 2020. We got this trailer right here. Out of the blue at the Tokyo Game Show of 2020. We hear that familiar jingle of the coin effects going into the cab. And then this shows up. I'm sure we're at highest quality possible. Yeah. And we see this. We see old Virtua Fighter cabs. We see old Virtua Fighter tournaments, old Virtua Fighter players. And no one's really sure what to think of this. And now we start seeing modern footage. And it was around this time people really didn't know what was going on. Until this moment right here. Virtua Fighter Cross Esports. A game title that came out of the blue. Literally no one was expecting it. Everybody thought for the longest time Virtua Fighter was done, it was over. And then boom, all of a sudden there's hope again. And on the show, after they played the trailer, they talked about it, said the project's going to be a little hard to explain, but please look forward to it. That was back in September of 2020. Everybody was super excited for Virtua Fighter again. People that hadn't played in a long time were starting to come back, starting to talk about it again. You can see in this corner right here. Around the same time, trailer drops on the Sega official channel. September 25th, same day. And then this account is reactivated, the Virtua Fighter official account. Get the new artwork for the what looks to be a new Akira render as the profile picture, and you know, the occasional tweet. The mid one was the reactivation of the account, the trailer coming out, and this account is still posting. Granted, unfortunately, there has been no news of Virtua Fighter Cross Esports officially from Sega at this point. They dropped that trailer back in September 2020, and they haven't said anything official yet, but there have been some leaks. We got the first one here from Damatsu. Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown rated for PS4 in Korea. So the Korean rating board leaked that Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown was rated back on March 19th. Again, no announcement from Sega except for the original trailer came out. But this was the first sign that something's changing. And we don't know what, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what it is that's happening yet. But a couple ideas started to circulate. The main one being and this is the one that I personally subscribed to at the time, was that Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown is the Game of the Year edition of Virtua Fighter 5. So it would come with Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown, and it would come with all the DLC included, and just be ported to modern consoles. If we were lucky, and if Sega really cared about us, we would get an update to the netcode to use rollback. But, you know, again, that's the prevailing theory I had at the time, and a lot of other people had that too. The other theories, the other one of note was that Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown was going to be an update to Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. It has a different title, and so typically whenever Virtua Fighter has changed the title, they have done an update. And that update has usually included new characters, revamped stages, balance changes. And it's plausible. It's a plausible theory. I'm not going to deny it. It's not the one I personally subscribed to, but I could see where they were coming from. I mean, heck, we even saw Skullgirls a few weeks ago get balance changes, and that game is about as old as Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown is. So, possible. Again, I don't think it's as likely as the other one I believed in. And then the last one was that this was the Cross Esports. This was trying to be a new game. That one didn't have much credence. And that was the last time we heard. This came out on, I believe it was April 2nd, 2021. Now, that being said, we got a new piece of news, fellas. That news is this. Another Damatsu article. And that is Virtua Fighter Esports for PS4 added to PlayStation 4 in Japan. A different title than Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown that was on the Korean rating board. And with it, not only did we get that new title, we got new render art. We have the primary art here that you see, starring the characters from the original Virtua Fighter 1, Akira, Jackie, Kage, Jeffrey, Ai, Lau, Wolf, Sarah. And then this full render here with all of the characters. With Lei Fei, with Leon and Chun-Li from Virtua Fighter 2, Taka, Aoi from Virtua Fighter 3, Brad, Lei Fei, Go, Vanessa from Virtua Fighter 4, Eileen, El Blaze, and John from Virtua Fighter 5. Same thing, Virtua Fighter Cross Esports. That came out early this morning. And nobody was really sure if this was the previously rated Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. An update came out a few hours later. These projects are likely one and the same. Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown on the Korean rating site lists the original title as Virtua Fighter Cross Esports. Another update comes out a few minutes later after that. Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown was also added to the PlayStation Store in Asia. Same icon and image, different title. So both of these titles, Virtua Fighter Esports and Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, are on the Japanese store. They're on the store. They have different titles. What could it mean? Well, my initial thought is that it's going to be in a similar situation to Dead or Alive 5 and Dead or Alive 6, now that I think about it, where they had their Dead or Alive 5 at its original version, Dead or Alive 5. Then they had Dead or Alive 5 Core Fighters, which was a free version. You got a few characters. You could buy characters separately, but you just still play the game for free. But now there's a little bit more credence to there being a different property. Because Virtua Fighter Esports and Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown are different titles on the same store page, which means they're different SKUs. So there's a theory that they could be different games. And honestly, it's really exciting. If I'm going to be honest with you, it's very, very exciting. Because this has been a franchise that has really been kind of, a catalyst for other 3D fighters. This was the first, what we will now consider modern 3D fighter in the way that it was designed and its combat system was implemented. And in a lot of ways, Virtua Fighter has been innovating in every iteration of the game. Virtua Fighter 1, of course, being the first modern 3D fighter. Virtua Fighter 3 being one of the earliest games to try uneven terrain, which, granted, not all innovations are good. Some of them need a little bit of ironing out. Virtua Fighter 4, though, that was really where they kind of cemented themselves as being one of the most innovative game franchises. Mainly because the tutorial mode in Virtua Fighter 4 is so ahead of its time. It is on par with any tutorial mode out today. And I'm not throwing those words around. I'm very serious. It is on par with any fighting game tutorial out right now. And Virtua Fighter 5 itself, while its tutorial is not as good as Virtua Fighter 4, is still very good. It still has a very good tutorial. In fact, let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. So the dojo tutorial, obviously it teaches you different, dashing, striking, jumping, guarding, common things, right? And then various other topics. It goes into evasion. It teaches you option selects in the game. Granted, this is not as robust as Virtua Fighter 4's was, but it's still very, very good. Another big thing about Virtua Fighter 5's tutorial is the command training. The command training, it just takes you through the move list, one move at a time, and you get to input it. You can skip around to anywhere in the move list, and it even has videos showing you how to input the more complicated moves. You see here, it has a frame counter, a screen display, or for buttons being pressed. And these are not just in this command training. They're in the free training as well. This information is relayed to you. And there is another thing, too, that this game has that unfortunately is still not a standard in the popular fighting games out right now. But they're working on it, and that is the display setting for frame data. So this little box right here, it will tell you how fast the move is, how much damage it does, what's your frame advantage on hit. It'll go into what's your frame advantage on block. It'll do frame advantage on counter hit. And there are a lot of different settings you can do to force situations where you want to practice an option select. It has a mode built in to test that right there. It'll tell you when something's punishable, both with the color and the frame data information. There are visual indicators for counter hits as well. And then the other display settings too, the command display, showing you which buttons are being pressed, what direction you're pressing it, just like it would be on an arcade stick. Another one that's helpful for the very tight commands is a frame counter. It tells you how long the button is being pressed. It'll tell you if you're being pressed at the same time. It'll tell you how long the gap is between another button press. So like if we want to wait 60 seconds between a press, like we did 67, we can look at that. there's a lot of information that's relayed to the player here that really allows them to experiment in the game system. And this was back in original base fighter, Virtua Fighter 5 was, I think, 2006. This one came out in 2012, so this was a long time ago, and it has these innovations. And so whenever that whenever the franchise went radio silent, it was really unfortunate, because this is a very innovative series. Like, you can see now in other 3D games, or just in other fighting games in general, they're taking inspiration from Virtua Fighter. Like, a lot of games are adding frame data now to the training mode. Tekken added it in paid DLC. Street Fighter V added it in their, I believe it was their arcade edition update. A lot of other ones are providing, you know, command training, like, you know, they have trials in a lot of fighting games now, and Virtua Fighter 4 had that. And it's very good that stuff is happening with the franchise now, especially right now where we are in the current fighting game climate. I'm very excited and very happy that Virtua Fighter is alive, is coming back, is getting news about it, is getting people talking again. Because it really just hasn't been a fighting game like it, I feel. So, that being said, if you're excited, you're like, well, Limey, I'm excited. What do I do? Like, how do I get into it? How do I get ready for this? Well, the very obvious answer is, well, just play Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. Well, how do you do that? That's where things get a little difficult. Mainly being, the game is old. There's no sugarcoating it. There's some old stuff in this game. It's an old fighting game. It has old problems, has old netcode. It's old. But you can still play it on the Xbox Live Arcade Store, even all the way up through Xbox One, I believe. And you can still purchase it on the Sony PlayStation 3 store. Now, there was that huge debate recently about whether or not the store is staying open. It's staying open right now, thank goodness. But those are the easiest way to purchase the game. Actually playing other people, emulation is probably going to be your best bet. It's just the network infrastructure for these games are failing. They're old. They aren't very reliable. So even if you own the game on PlayStation 3 or Xbox, if you don't live within the same country, or really sometimes if you're in the United States, the same state, you could have connection problems. So emulation, in addition to the use of Parsec, which lets you pair to another computer, is the main way to play other people in this game, unfortunately. Which is why it's super exciting that this is coming out, because they'll hopefully port it to modern consoles and to PC and improve the netcode so that it's easier to play this game. So you say, oh, well, I don't worry about that. I'm not worried about that. I want to play it. I want to learn it. Or I don't mind using Parsec to play other people, but I want to learn the game. Where do I go to learn the game? Best place you can go, right here, virtuafighter.com. This is the Bible, the holy land for learning Virtua Fighter 5. Virtua Fighter 4 too, even. As on top of its incredible in-depth archiving of moves, there's a ton of forums. You can talk to a bunch of different people. People are still on there to this day talking about Virtua Fighter. So this is why we're all excited about Virtua Fighter news. Just these people haven't stopped. We haven't stopped. People are still talking about it back and forth. Talking about looking games for Xbox Live on PlayStation Network, tutorial threads, guide threads, character strengths and weaknesses, matchup specific information. All of it is here. All of it's on here. It also serves as a great way to look at a move registry. All the moves for certain characters for every character is going to be input here, and it'll tell you everything. The frame data is accurate because frame data is in the game. They just pulled the numbers from there. It'll tell you, you know, how to input the move, what's the command for the move, if the move can be sidestepped or not, if the move sobers up Shun-Di, which is a character that has a unique mechanic, what the move is on counter hit, what it is on crouching, what it is on the opponent's side, where the move comes out, what are the active frames, what are the recovery frames. It is very in-depth. It also has a combo list for these characters. So it'll categorize them by longitude and change how you want to view them. You can view it in a list, you can view it in these tabs. They'll tell you the launcher, the combos, what combos work on certain characters, which way the characters have to be facing for these combos to work. There are events, if anything was planned. Obviously nothing right now because COVID. It would be on here. Streams for people streaming Virtua Fighter 5 are going to be on here. A wiki, a member list. It's the place to go. It's the place to go to learn Virtua Fighter 5. I would say do the tutorial in Virtua Fighter 5. Once you're done with that, mess around, find a character, and then come here and just start learning, start talking to people. You're like, okay, I've done that. Now I want to play the game. Where do I go? I want to watch the game. What do I do? There are a few places you can go. First one, most notable, this person right here, Virtua CGP, Virtua Catgirl Princess. Her and another individual named Harpooneer, this guy here, they run a Discord called Hot Dogs and Sake Club. The link can be found on their Twitter pages, and in there every Saturday they run a Parset tournament. You can get in, play a bunch of different people, learn a lot about the game, talk with them about it afterwards, and they just have general channels for a lot of different, for all the different Virtua Fighters, in fact. Another place you can go, Virtua Revival. Virtua Revival is another Discord that you can go and ask people for games, set up your region, tell them what you want to do, talk about Virtua Fighter, learn Virtua Fighter, share Virtua Fighter tech. You can go there and start playing other people. They even have a lot of people for Xbox and PS3. And it's a great place to go. Another thing you can do is there are also plenty of streams. I know YouTube has the Game Newton streams and the Mikado streams. Those are the Mikado is every Monday and Tuesday. The Game Newton is going to be more, I think, on a monthly basis, and they're going to have Virtua Fighter streams, and these are watching international competition. You can watch those and learn those as well. And then the last one of note is you got to follow these guys. You got to follow these guys. First one is Tricky VFDC, or Tricky Eileen. He's been a prominent figurehead on the VirtuaFighter.com forums. He streams Virtua Fighter all the time. If you watch him live, he's usually playing Virtua Fighter. I mean, he just made a video on this right now as well. And he has a stream up there. He's usually streaming with this guy right here, Mr. Adam Yuki. One of the world top players of Virtua Fighter. Did really, really well. I think he got second at EVO in 2018. Either 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2018. He got second place there, you know, fighting the Japanese. He's a really, really good Jeffrey player. They run the Boccia Arcade. You can get in, you can play other players, you can play other top players, like you can play iFits Machine, you can play Juicebots, you can play Gentleman Thief, another top American player, probably the greatest American player at this point. You can fight them. You can also go to Juicebots' channel, and there are tons of people just streaming the game, so feel free to follow the game on Twitch and just hop into a stream. People are very, very friendly. They're very, very welcoming to new people playing Virtua Fighter, and they're going to help you learn the game. So yeah, that's it, man. Like, that's a place where you can go, the resources, you can learn and watch Virtua Fighter, and hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more information very soon, because I really, really, really want Virtua Fighter for the modern audience. I think a lot of problems people have with fighting games right now, I think are solved in Virtua Fighter, and I really just want people to play this game. And anything Sega does that makes that easier, makes that game more accessible, and not accessible, more popular. Don't make it accessible. That's a buzz trigger word. You don't want that. Anything that makes this game more popular, makes it easier for people to play this game on modern consoles is a blessing. Hopefully Sega has more news from us. I am certainly going to be making Virtua Fighter content once we get this stuff. I've already made some on my YouTube channel. I have some PS3 lobbies, playing with some friends in my local area. But I really look forward to hopefully providing more Virtua Fighter content and hopefully playing whatever new version of Virtua Fighter comes out. So, thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll get information from Sega soon. Please add roll.net code Sega. Sega, I love you. Please, for me. Please, Sega, please, please, please let me play my friends. In the meantime, y'all stay wise. Peace.